In 2004, I was 35 years old, and I was married to a wonderful man. I had 2 beautiful children, and I had no idea who I was sexually anymore. Was my body ever going to be the same? Was it going to feel the same? Was it okay to be sexual now that I was a mother? Was it okay not to be? Was I having a blip, some sort of postpartum depression situation, or was this going to be profound and long-term? I was worried, and I didn't know exactly what to do or who to talk to. Going to see a therapist seemed kind of alienating and strange, and talking to my friends, well, that just seemed scary and a little embarrassing, but I knew something had to change really fast. I remember looking in the mirror at this one point and saying, if you can't ask for what you want, if you can't even say it to yourself, how are you ever going to get it? You're a married woman, you own a house, you've got a cat. You can do this. So this was, when blogging started to become incredibly popular. Early 2000s, if we can all remember back that far, people were using the internet to tell stories about everything and to kind of trade recipes, so to speak. If you wanted to make a fabulous French recipe in under an hour, you could look it up. If you wanted to fix your car and make sure that you didn't have to go to the auto repair store, you could look it up. And after a little bit of research, I found sex blogs. Sex blogs were places where people were writing honestly and openly about sex and gender. There were men, there were women, old and young, gay, straight couples. And this was not just about the titillation factor. This was about what was happening in the world. Love, connection, heartbreak, trying new things. So the more I read, the better I felt. And I started feeling like these are real people out there in the world, not just, people trying to be dirty, but people like me. So I started leaving my laptop open. Maybe my husband would take a look. I started shyly sharing a few links with him, and he did get the message. Pretty soon we were reading blogs together, commenting on them. And then they would comment back, and it was like we were making friends with sex bloggers. It was so strange. But it was wonderful, too, because they were answering questions I didn't even know that I had, and I was talking to my husband more than I ever thought possible. So then we started our own sex blog. An anonymous one. You can't find it, I don't think. Who knows? Look for it. Maybe you can tell me if you find it. But we were writing about our own adventures and kind of chronicling what was happening to us. And people started commenting on our blog, and they were telling us that we were helping them, like navigating sex and parenting, or maybe introducing a topic they'd always wanted to talk about, but they weren't sure about. And I thought, oh my God, we're helping people. And that was, if I can be really honest with you, one of the bigger turn-ons of the entire experience. It kind of was, and that's because I'm kind of a nerdy social justice person, so helping people is really important to me. But it was kind of powerful to be able to do that. And there came a point where I thought, there's got to be more to this. I want sex out of the closet. This has helped me. I want it to help everybody else. And I'm guessing you're probably thinking sex is pretty well out of the closet. It's in the media all the time. We're kind of bombarded with it on magazine stands. Sex is everywhere. But I ask you, does it really represent you? When you look out there into the world, does it represent how you feel about yourself sexually? Because it didn't represent me, what I was seeing. In our culture, I feel like we have these poles. Sex is either sanctified and held up to some pretty difficult standards to reach, purity-wise, or perfection and total love involvement. And on the other hand, it's sort of held up to this pornographied standard. Really hard to manage that on an athletic level. That's hard to deal with, but it's also considered really dirty, right? It's like kind of considered crass. And so nowhere in there was this two-way street. It was a one-way street with the media or all of these images presenting you, what you're supposed to feel about it, how you're supposed to look, how you're supposed to be. But what about what you want? What about questions you've got? There wasn't a two-way street that really normalized sexuality, that really took it into the sphere of public conversation to make you feel like it was human, just something that made you, you. And that's what I wanted. So I decided that I didn't really want to be hidden and anonymous anymore. And it was fun for a period of time, like walking around the local grocery store going, I've got a secret identity. I'm a sex blogger and no one knows who I am. But I wanted to actually be able to talk about it publicly with people. And then I met 3 other women in town who also were sex bloggers. So much for secret identities, right? There were plenty in Austin. And my friends, they were such good friends of mine, Mia and Sadie and Rosie, we decided, and they invited me to join them in this venture, to start a live storytelling show about sex and gender and relationships. And we did this in 2010, and we've been doing it ever since, monthly, and it's a really fun show. We get together, and the artists get on stage and they tell fictional stories, but also historical ones, or mortifying tales of like the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we all know, we've all got kind of a mortifying story about something ridiculous that's happened to us with sex. And they're funny, and they're wonderful, and they're human, and they're beautiful. We've even had a musician sing some songs, and we've had a magician do a really silly little set as well. But it's not that one-way street. We make sure the audience has the opportunity to write on little cards, little mini stories on their own, to tell us what they might want, to ask a question they need an answer to, but they're scared to ask in person, or to maybe nudge their partner when they hear it read on stage. That was me, I want to try that. Because we know it's a difficult topic. Okay, so if it's so difficult, why do I get on stage in front of people with my real name and talk about it out loud? Well, I do it because it is so important. All around me, and all today, we've heard all these stories from people, amazing stories about life and death and hope and war and earthquakes and rebuilding things. Our stories are part of who we are. We're aligned inside of ourselves. We want to be human. We want this power to be and to go forth in the world and create. And our bodies are a part of that. Our sexuality is a part of that. And your stories about that matter. And you can get out there and you can tell these stories because we are all storytellers. Each and every one of us has something to say. Telling stories about sex humanizes the experience. It normalizes it. It takes it out of the pole between sanctified and pornogrified and makes it just what makes us us. And here's the things it can do. It can bring a couple closer together. And that, to me, is a revolutionary act in and of to itself. It can also help people heal after trauma. Trauma lives in our bodies. And studies are showing that being witnessed, telling your story, and being able to tell it and look in a person's eyes is healing, and it helps move that through and out. And it can help activists and artists come together and really change the face of how public policy works. It can do a lot of things. What we want, as all of us here, is to create and to keep this momentum going forward, making our lives better and richer and more powerful. So sex is a part of that, and don't be afraid to talk about it. Only by telling these stories, only by taking sex out of the closet and into the public sphere, and really looking each other in the eye and saying, yeah, I get it. I've been there too. I was worried about that. That was confusing. Oh, you too? That is the thing that can change you, give you more consensual, ethical, joyful, and pleasurable relationships, and it can change the world. So never, ever be afraid to tell your story, because your story and your sexual narrative is important. Thank you.